What's up, you guys? This is Devin from CenturyFX Studios, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about graduation pictures. Now, for those of you who saw my video about prom pictures, proms and graduations follow a similar structure and format. Now, with proms, you have the big event, but you also have pictures that could be taken outside of prom. Then you have graduations that have the big event, but you can also take pictures outside of the graduation. Now, graduation tends to have one more extra event, and that will be the school pictures, the school cap and gown images and tux and drape images. Those also cater to graduations, but nowadays people are shying away from keeping those images and actually going out with a photographer that they trust and they know, and going out to whatever, especially if it's a college, going out to whatever school that they studied at and taking pictures around the school, and there's a school sign and things of that nature and landmarks around the college or university or school of trade. Now, with the high schoolers, it's kind of the same thing, but at the same time, high schoolers really want to be outside because usually the high schools don't yield themselves to different types of majors. Like, for example, if I were to go out to UNC, you see the biology, you see Keenan Flagler Business School and things of that nature, but you don't have anything like that for a high school. They don't separate the schools into certain schools, and you can't concentrate and find props that cater to that student. So I'm going to split it off into high school and colleges for graduation pictures. Now, of course, we're going to start with high schools, and we have the cap and gown images. They're typically headshots. If you are extravagant enough, you'll take some casual shots, maybe in a studio type environment, or you'll be outside. Now, with the school stuff, we're not going to get into the school pictures, but we will get into the casual images outside. Now, usually you have multiple outfits. You will have an outfit for, the cap and gown, aka tux and drape kind of thing. You will have an outfit for that, and then you probably will have a casual outfit that you wear under that cap and gown. Now, the cap and gown is pretty straightforward. The cap and gown has props of its own. It has the 2019 or 2020 or whatever year you're graduating. It has the tassel. It has the cap. It has the gown. All of this can be used to symbolize graduation. Just like when you're out taking pictures of a pre-wedding date and it says save the date on the sign, well, that's the same thing for graduation. You have the hat and you have the tassel. All these things are symbolic, and you probably will never wear that hat and tassel ever again unless you're going off to college or another trade school or something like that and you're graduating there. But even then, after those events, you probably won't be able to wear it again. So it behooves you to actually get pictures. Shameless plug. So you want to be able to use these pictures to your advantage, and you want to be able to use these props to your advantage, using that hat tassel, throwing the hat and tassel. That's a classic image. Having the hat and tassel in your hand, having that picture of the hat and tassel that you souped up, your student souped up. All this stuff is important, especially if that student did something else in high school, whether it be music, dance, cosmetology, art, science. If you know you're going to major in mathematics when you get into college or trade school, if you know you're going out to the Army, maybe that whole camo is going to be a part of your uniform, or maybe you have a ROTC uniform that you want to have in your graduation shoot. All this stuff is extremely important, and it's extremely individual. It's all based off of the individual. So you need to know exactly what that individual is about, what they like to do, what are they going in their life. If they're going somewhere in their life, what do they aspire to do? What did they do in high school? What made them popular? In high school, one thing that made me popular was my ability with music. So when I took my senior pictures, I took my pictures with a saxophone, and I had a class ring that had saxophone engraved, and all this stuff is perfect for senior pictures that make that individual, because you don't want senior pictures that look just like somebody else's senior pictures. That's why people are shying away from the school pictures and stuff like that, even though, especially if you're in the South, you like to have everything classic. You want everything to be tux and drape, capping out, because those are the traditional things, and they pretty much will have a staple for everybody. So everybody's pretty much going to buy those anyway, but a lot of people are still wanting to include another shoot where they're out at the park or out by their school, or if they're aspiring to be, or they got accepted to a school like Harvard or Howard or an HBCU or any Ivy League school. It's like they want to go to that school and be like, hey, can I take my high school graduation pictures at this school, because I know that I've been inspired to be at this school my whole life. Maybe I'm inspired to be a doctor or something like that. All of this can be applied to not only high school but colleges as well. And you can You can take your diploma out with you. You can take anything out with you. For example, there was one time that I went out with a friend of mine who I knew he was graduating high school, and I knew what he liked to do. He liked to do theater, and I knew the theater director, and I still know the theater director very well. And I said, hey, I asked the theater director, can I get into the theater to get pictures of this person for their graduation and pictures of them in the theater by themselves, kind of looking off into the distance at the chairs and all the big, because I knew our theater, or the theater that we both graduated from, was a big theater. So I used that with a wide angle lens, took pictures of things that make it unique, all this stuff, and had him on a third, and had that it was a nice picture, and he loved it. And there was a whole bunch of things that were still up from the last play, and we were able to actually use the theater as a main backdrop for, what this person liked. Or if they like to use an instrument, there's at least 10 good shots that you can take with an instrument that they played with for years. Just having it up, holding it. If they played a trumpet, a flute, or anything like that. If they did hair, where's the combs at? Where's the combs at? Where's the hair dryers, or whatever they use for cosmetology? If they did haircutting, cosmetology, whatever, where's the clippers? Where's the scissors? Where's all the stuff that shows them off being who they are? And that's extremely more important than any full frame camera that you can get, anything like that. Now we can get into that stuff, that junk later, the gear, but I'm talking about what makes this picture so great about this individual. So those are some of the things to think about as far as graduation, and of course the location, school. Know how the sun is going to react. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be the spring. It's going to be hard. High-speed sync for those of us who are using DSLRs, SLRs. If you're using an external light source, or if you're using a on-camera flash, try to take it off. Optically save it for a more dynamic look and more contrast to your look with your lighting. Rembrandts, your short loop lights, your split lights, anything that you want to make. If they were a football player, I know that my friend took a picture of a football player one time with a whole bunch of powder in the background, and this person did an amazing picture of a football player that was in a football attire that was split lit, and it looked very devious, but it looked like a strong football player. And these are some of the things you can think about, but you have to think, who are you taking a picture of? For an example, I have a graduation shoot coming up in the midst of April and May, and I know that these two clients, I know them very well. I know both of them are dancers. Both of them have dancing outfits that they're probably going to want to use. They both have cap and gowns that they're probably going to want to use. They're going to have props for all the different things that they were in. One of them were homecoming queen. So I know that the tiara is going to be there. I know that there's going to be a certain outfit that this certain individual wants, and I know exactly what kind of I want to do a macro shot of the crown. I want to show off the jewelry that she's going to have. I know that makes her an individual, because not many people got homecoming queen or miss such and such high school like she has gotten. So those are some of the things that make these people individual, more so than the megapixels, more so than the bokeh, more so than all the little gear that we like to get into. But now let's get into settings and gear and stuff like that. Now, like I already said with the backgrounds, you want to have clean backgrounds, non-distracted backgrounds. You don't want to chop off things like that. You don't want to chop off anything important, of course. You want to not distort the person. Your 85s, your 50 millimeters, your 85s, all that stuff, extremely important. Your bocalicious subject isolating background lenses, your L lenses, all that's important. We already know your 70 to 200, your Holy Trinity, all we already know. But for those of you who don't know, your Holy Trinities, your 24 to 10, not 24 to 105s, but 24 to 70, 70 to 200s, and whatever choice prime lens, whether it be a 14 to 35 or 14 to 24 f1.4, whatever you got, 24 prime, whatever you want to fill out your holy trinity of lenses, to make sure you have as many possible looks as you can. And then of course I would shoot RAW, but you don't have to. You can shoot JPEG, depending on, if you're willing to go back and post and do all that other stuff. But you gotta know that you're dealing with the sun, so you got a lot of things that can go wrong in your image. So make sure you expose it the best way you can possibly expose it, so you can get the most out of your image. Now, if you really want to get the most out of your image, RAW. But if you can't do that, find JPEGs. Try your best to get images that they like. And of course, go over the images while you're doing it with the client. Now, you have to understand, like, for example, me, if I'm choosing a camera, I will go, I have the option of the 7D. I have the option of the Micro Four Thirds G7, which I'm filming right now. I have the options of the 80D. And those are the cameras that I have at my disposal. I've been shooting with the 7D for almost 10 years now. I've been shooting with the 80D for about 4 years now. But I would bring the 80D, and the reason is not because the sensor is dramatically different from the 7D Mark I. The whole thing about the 80D is you can swipe, you can pinch to zoom. It's more intuitive to use. You can flip that screen around. You can get overhead looks. You can get under, looks and really isolate subjects easier and check focus easier than I would if I was using 70. Even though the 70 is still a phenomenal camera. If I was doing sports with that, I might even use both cameras, because if I'm doing sports, I don't want to use the 80D because I can't back button focus with the 80D. Not that I know of. I'm pretty sure I cannot back button focus with the 80D. So if Miss Homecoming or Homecoming Queen or Miss, whoever, you know what I'm talking about, when that person comes up to me for graduation pictures this year, I might have the 70 on hand. Why? Because I know she's a dancer as well, and she's going to want in-action shots of herself dancing. Now, if she jumps up in the sun and she wants to make herself look like a silhouette, I'm not using the 7 frames a second 80D. I am using the 8 frames a second 7D Mark I, even though the 7D Mark I has like 8 less megapixels. Even though the 7D Mark I is like a 10 times older camera. Even though, because I know in my mind that I'm confident about using that joystick that the 80D doesn't have. I'm confident about using back button focus, a technique that Tony Northup taught me, and locking focus, so while she's moving, I'm using AI servo to track her as best I can possibly can. And since she's only one subject, I don't have to worry about other subjects getting in the way, especially if I'm in a park or something like that. These are some of the things that I'm always thinking about when I'm taking pictures. And if you're not thinking about these things, you're an advanced photographer, you really want to start thinking about these things, especially if you have more than one camera at your disposal, or you can get a better camera. What advantages can that camera give you other than megapixels? Because a lot of cameras have high megapixels. Other than RAW, because a lot of cameras have RAW. Even phones have DNGs, which are essentially, like a RAW file, and it's not as good as a proprietary RAW file like I would think Canon or Sony or things like that. But I've never tested that. You can always use DNGs if you're using Adobe Lightroom on your cell phone. So those are things to think about. What makes your cell phone different from a DSLR? Let's get into cell phones now. You can do panoramics. You can do a whole bunch of software-based things that the cell phone, the DSLR can't do, like editing and posting, sending it directly to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of the stuff that the DSLRs really won't do, and people have to bring their RAW files back, and time is of the essence and things of that nature, and you want people to really see what you got and really see what you're about to graduate. Instant gratification is right there on the cell phone. You can also think about different things that HDR. HDR is a big thing on cell phones that most DSLR shooters have to bracket before they get. Now, some of the newer DSLRs or high form cameras can do HDR in camera, but it's usually never really what you want. And the cell phones have better algorithms and better software that allow you to get exactly what you want out of your cell phone prior to you even posting it. So when you post it, you know exactly what you're getting, because not only does the cell phone have good algorithms and good software, but it has good screens. You can see whether or not you focus better than a screen on the G7 or the 5D Mark, whatever you want to get. And then you can also do video, small videos, or you can do time lapses and things of that nature to maybe get an elaborate photojournalistic story out of the whole graduation shoot, and maybe offer some more to your client or offer some more to your friend if you're shooting with a cell phone. Those are all the things you want to think about. I'm telling you, when you paying these photographers, these are the things that we're thinking about in our head, and then you get the notion, oh, I can pay you $20 to do. No, we're thinking about all these things just so we're able to at least give you a satisfactory picture in the field before we even take it into post. So because all the good photographers are able to at least show you the back of the screen, and then even if you're used to having a photographer on spot, you're going to want to, hey, let me see what that picture look like. And if that photographer doesn't say yes, you might not be confident throughout the shoot whether or not that picture is good or any other pictures are good. And then that might affect your feeling about the pictures in the end, and then it might make all your pictures look worse because you're not able to see them as you go along. You're not confident in the product that the photographer is giving you. So, with all that being said, those are a lot of things to think about with graduation pictures, where you are, what settings your camera is on. Like I said, I can't give you the perfect settings. I use manual 99% of the time. It's rare I ever use aperture priority or shutter priority because I'm also using another light source. And your camera doesn't meter for a whole bunch of stuff, especially if you don't have TTL on your light source. Like I have a Flashpoint 600, and I know that it doesn't have TTL on it. So I'm going to have to meter using my eyes and the screen on the camera. I'm going to have to use my histogram and things of that nature. I'm not gonna be using a Sony or anything like that that can give me a live preview of any kind of exposure. And the Sony using an adapter for a Canon lens is the A7 II. A7R2 is just not good for any kind of conversions or anything like that. So I'm not going to use that camera at all, even though I know I can borrow it. If anything, I would use the 60 because I know how to borrow that. But it only has one focus point in the center. That's the best. And if I focus and recompose using a prime lens at 2.8, hang it up on the focus, because I've always had that issue. But these are things that photographers are thinking about. It's not just you going out there paying $20 for a person. They're thinking about all these different things. They're thinking about how to make these images last for a lifetime. Make it worthy of them coming back to take another kid's picture, or that sister, or that brother, or anybody else who is kin or knows that next person. We're shooting not only for a retainer, but we're shooting for satisfaction as well. And it's not just you going out there taking pictures, $20 for that. Now, there will be photographers that do that, but if you're traveling, multiple outfits, all this time is money. All this is extremely important. If you're using a cell phone, like I said, you're in the most challenging environments with the sun and darkly lit environments, inside the house, outside the house. That's for prom, but for graduation, in a venue, if they're graduating, hang it up. Graduation venues don't like you having long lenses in there anymore. There's so many things. Now, if you're outside, bang. I know that Meredith College tends to have their graduations outside, and you can. I'm not sure on the rules now, but they tend to have a more open environment for photography. The last time I went, but that was years ago, taking pictures at their graduation. I know that Central NCCU takes their pictures outside. Takes their graduation outside, does that graduation outside, so you can take pictures outside. But like I take it with a grain of salt. You never know what kind of venue you're going to end up at. Always, if you're going to a venue to take a pictures, if you have the privileges to, you want to make sure that you do research in advance and see how everything's going to play out. That's if you're in a venue. Now, like I said, if you're outside and you have all the luxury of space in the world, that means you need to do even more research, because you're not expected to mess up outside. Now, if there's a shot in the venue that you don't get because of the massive amount of people, because of the rules, because this, that, and the other, then it's probably not that big of a deal. But if you're just you and the client and maybe the parent, you don't have the luxury to really be messing up, especially if you plan this out. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about just off the top of my head. I did not have a script, so I might be all over the place, but all the information is valid and is needed. If you have any specific questions, like you got high-speed sync, but you don't know how to do it, pocket wizards, but it don't do high-speed sync, all these other things that matters to people who are using bigger cameras or even small cell phone cameras. Another thing for small cell phone cameras, always have your microfiber cloth to clean off that lens where your finger always goes, or you go reaching in your pocket, pull out a cell phone that has a fingerprint on it, and you take a picture. You're like, wow, that's not the 40 megapixel cell phone that I bought from the store that cost me $700. Well, no, because you put your finger on the lens, and it's that simple. I mean, you might not be thinking about your finger on the lens because you can't see a big fingerprint on the lens. It's just smear marks or a lack of resolution. So always have a microfiber cloth. If you're going to take a picture of somebody at prom, wipe that cell phone lens off and do yourself a favor and get the best, highest quality image you can possibly get out of that cell phone. Like I said, if you need some tips on what to do with the cell phone, look at my prom video. It'll help you out a little bit more. But I'm done with CenturyFX Studios. Thanks for watching this long, like I said, more of like a diatribe, a long-winded video like I always do. You guys know me, but I'm going to give you guys some good information, and I love helping people. So, that being said, I'm done with CenturyFX Studios. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode.